Hi, Shane. Okay, let's start with probably two controversial issues, AI, decarbonation, and the energy sector. Yeah. Explain how they fit together.
Yeah, no, interesting question. And when you think about it, the way they come together is actually relatively clear. As you replace CPUs, so traditional chips, with GPUs, which are far more energy intensive, that will lead to a greater demand for energy. In addition to that, you will see greater amounts of data centers rolled out. We're talking billions and billions of dollars invested in data centers globally. And so with that extra data demand and that extra power demand, that will lead to greater amounts of generation. Now, we all know the hyperscalers have net zero ambitions, and so that generation will likely be renewables. In places like the US, expectations are that the additions for solar generation will double over the next 5 years. And in the case of wind, almost double over the next 5 years. So substantial amounts of investment into renewables by utilities to really feed that AI-hungry generation.
Well, that also folds into the, I think, $21 trillion investment into power grids. What impact will this have on the resilience, which is the area we worry about most?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's an interesting question. When you think about it, there's a substantial amount of investment that needs to be made into power grids. Even standalone and really status quo, about $13 trillion over the next 30 years is expected to be invested. Now, if you take a look at more of a decarbonised net zero type expectation, so sub 2%, that, as you said, rises to over $20 trillion. Now, the interesting thing about those numbers is 80% of that goes into resilience, into maintenance to basically get these systems ready for storm hardenings, for climate change, all these issues which obviously impact the resilience and the ability to deliver electricity to the ultimate customer. So the benefit of investing in utilities as we do, and it's about 50 to 60% of our portfolio, is that really with that maintenance spend, that contributes to very stable and growing assets, very stable and growing cash flows, and ultimately very stable and growing dividends.
Let's go further into the whole data center question. Proportionately, is it as big or is it just an interesting area? And secondly, how do you actually build resilience for data centers specifically?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. And for us, obviously, we don't directly invest into data centers. We really invest in the infrastructure around it. But it's absolutely crucial that a utility needs to integrate those data centers into the grid. And the reason they need to do that is they need to forecast that power generation going forward. They need to understand the expectation for that growth going forward, because if they don't, as you know, that will cause outages and blackouts, and clearly no one wants that, right? So for us, absolutely crucial your regulated utilities are integrated into building out these data centers. And that's why globally it's been such a boom for regulated utilities.
Where else are you seeing AI have a role in smart grids or electricity utilization?
Yeah, so smart grids is an interesting one, and just a little bit of context on that. A smart grid is basically the ability to manage your electricity through the grid. What they essentially do over time is they run fiber optics through the electricity line so you can get real-time access. And it has a number of benefits. Firstly, for a utility, there are about 4 or 5 benefits. The first one would be the agility of that system, so the ability to effectively be flexible in terms of shutting things off and increasing load at certain periods. You have the big benefit of being able to forecast that demand much, much better. Thirdly, in terms of outages, far less outages, because again, you are able to switch off parts of the network and switch on other parts of the network. Fourthly, when you look at the return for the utility, very attractive returns generated by the utility, because again, they are able to manage their costs in a far more seamless way. And then finally, demand side management. So they're able to manage the demand of the consumer remotely. Now, when you think about a consumer, there are a number of benefits too. Lower cost is clearly one. So the ability to what they call shave the peak, so reduce the high points in terms of electricity usage, and so reduce cost. Second point is choice. So, a lot of people want purely renewable generation, and they are able to actually choose that through AI and through the ability to actually use smart grid properly. And then finally, obviously, outages. No one wants outages. So from a consumer perspective, AI really helps to allow for very, very minimal outages.
Finally, Shane, across this event, we're hearing lots of views from people on markets, different aspects. What is your takeaway that you've taken on board so far?
Sure. So, look, I'd say there are different views, and I think clearly there's noisy fiscal, noisy monetary, volatile markets. Some believe we're in for a far rougher road going forward, as you've seen tightening monetary policy. Others think we're the start of the next 3-4 years of fantastic returns. One thing I'll say though, and I'd say infrastructure is a perfect case for that. Through all this noise, there are some very, very strong structural stories, and I think infrastructure is an example. Whether it's decarbonisation, investment in power grids or water grids, investment in AI, or what it's doing to powering of data centres. There are some very, very strong themes that are multi-decade, multi-trillion-dollar themes that if you look through a lot of that noise, you can really capitalise on and earn very attractive returns.
Thank you, Shane, for a fascinating conversation.
Thank you.